And welcome into Pressbox Live. That's Pressbox Live on Facebook Live. It's brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. And I'll keep that reading short tonight because we've got short time. My co-host is Gary Stein. And Gary, we're thrilled to welcome in a former co-host of ours over on TV side, and that is Miss Gabby Gaudet of TVG now. Gabby, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing very well, and I'm so happy to be back on with you guys. I was actually, it's funny because just a couple weeks ago, I was updating my reel, and I went back and I had to comb through some of our old stuff, and it brought back some great memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, showing yourself working with us is always going to make you look very good. Hey,
we had some great guests.
We did have some good guests, and we had some good times, and you're a great content provider. We got a lot to touch on, and I know you've got short time tonight. We'll redo this maybe before the Breeders' Cup or something like that when we can get a full half hour in with you. But let's talk about a couple things real quick. Big breaking news today in the world of horse racing is that Churchill Downs and the state of Kentucky has suspended Bob Baffert's ability to train racehorses in Kentucky, which means that Bob Baffert apparently will not be at the 22 or 23 Kentucky Derby. Your thoughts, and will this end up being a disqualification for Medina Spirit?
I was thinking, to answer your second half of the question first, Stan, I really don't know. This is kind of uncharted territory, and it's really going to come up to what Churchill Downs and Churchill Downs Incorporated does decide to do at the end of the day. Now, I will say, when you compare this particular drug, this isn't the first time that a horse has tested positive for this particular drug. It is in the Kentucky Derby, but it is technically a Class C drug, which does not result in the past, which has not resulted in a disqualification. So I do think that's worth noting. But again, we're talking about the Kentucky Derby, and I think Churchill Downs is really putting their foot down and saying, look, we're not going to tolerate this anymore, moving forward. So it is an aggressive move. But again, like I said, this is uncharted territory. So this is where the precedent is being set.
Real quick, because I want to get into some other stuff about what a whirlwind your life has been like since you left Maryland. But this situation, I read what the Kentucky officials are saying, and it really sounds like some of Baffert's excuses have really rubbed them the wrong way, that they feel it's almost like it just isn't washing, coming out of the laundry clean. Make sense to you?
It does. I mean, from their perspective, it's so tough because everybody has really strong opinions about this topic, and they're all over the map. And if that's how, the officials at Churchill Downs feel, the people that are making those decisions, then you kind of have to, support their decision. I think at the end of the day, Stan, being the daughter of a trainer, the wife of a horse trainer, being someone who has covered racing for the past several years, I think at the end of the day, we just really want to clean the sport up. We want rules that apply not only state to state, but we want uniformity throughout the industry, throughout the country. And, this might be the first step in the process.
Hey, Gabby, if I can just follow up with a quick one on that, and then we could move on to something else. Could you put this in context for us? Like, we've had doping scandals, performance enhancing drugs in baseball. That kind of ruined a lot of people's careers. We've had the same thing in football, suspensions, et cetera. You know, is this a Tom Brady doing this type of thing in football? I mean, put it in context for us.
Bob Baffert is the best trainer in North America. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, in any sport, you think of the best athlete in any sport, and it would be like them, you know, coming up with a drug positive. However, I do think it's really important to note that this is a Class C drug violation, and there are other trainers in the country who have had horses test positive for this. This is not an anabolic steroid. This isn't necessarily a performance enhancing drug, but it's still, it's an eyesore. It's really, it's not a good thing for this industry, especially considering who Bob Baffert is, to answer your question. So yeah, this is a very, very big deal. And in the impact, I would say, Gary, if Bob Baffert is not allowed to run 3-year-olds in the Kentucky Derby in the next 2 years, this will make a huge economic impact on Bob Baffert as a trainer, because his owners will know that he can't run a horse in the Kentucky Derby the next couple of years. And that's what he's known for developing 3-year-olds to win the Kentucky Derby. So owners are going to find other trainers to have to send their horses to, and that's going to have a huge impact on Bob Baffert and his operation.
Maybe it'll help your husband though, Norman.
Yeah.
We'll see. You know, he's not based in California, so I don't know about that.
Go ahead.
You know, speaking of that, Gabby, Stan kind of touched on it a minute ago. Your life has really been a whirlwind over the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, back in 2017, I think, or maybe 18 it was, I'm not sure, we had you on our Inside Press Box show on TV. So much has happened to you since. You're a local girl. I mean, you grew up here. Your dad, obviously, you know, your name, very famous and popular here in Baltimore. You went to Towson University. If you could, for just a minute.
Grad. She's a Towson grad.
Exactly. Just reacquaint our audience with what's happened with you over the last 3 or 4 years.
I think I'd need a little bit more time, guys, but yeah, I mean, since being, you know, I went from being in Maryland and working for the Stronach Group to having an opportunity to work for the New York Racing Association. And that was the first year that they started with their Fox shows, their Fox Sports shows. And although I do not work for them at this current moment, you know, it was a great opportunity. It opened a lot of doors. I had the opportunity to travel, you know, the world. I went to Hong Kong to even cover racing at one point. But you know, you get to a point where you have to make a decision what you want. You obviously want to move your career forward and be successful, but you also want to have that balance with family. And I ultimately made that decision to leave New York, go to Kentucky. And I've had the opportunity to work with TVG since then. And it's been such a blessing. And, you know, since I went to Kentucky, I also had a chance to start working with Keeneland, which is, you know, one of the most respected racetracks and sales companies in the sport. So I've had, you know, an extended role with them, hosted the Eclipse Awards for the last 2 years as well, which is like the industry award ceremony every year. It's a championship honor. So yeah, it's been great, guys. I truly, you know, you do have to work very hard, but at the same time, I've had a lot of amazing people supporting me and some great mentors along the way.
So let me jump in there, Gabby. When you were working with us, I remember we would ask you who was going to win the Triple Crown or who was going to run in the Triple Crown. And the favorite in the 2017 Kentucky Derby was a horse named Classic Empire. And I remember you really liked that horse. And he was trained by Mark Casse. Am I pronouncing the last name correct?
That's right.
All right. You're now his daughter-in-law. Had it not been for your coverage of Classic Empire, is that how you met Norman and now our Mrs. Casse?
I actually knew Norman a couple years prior to that.
Okay.
So when I went to Florida for the first winter, I met him because he was assistant for his dad.
Yep.
And I was working at Gulfstream Park for the first time. and we did meet that winter. And yeah, it was a whirlwind ever since then. So no, I had already known him before the
All
Classic
right.
Empires Preakness Derby campaign.
All right. I remembered that though very well. Now, you've got some exciting personal news that you and Norman are expecting. And when will this little love bug come out?
Actually, he's due, or I'm due. We're expecting to have our baby boy Breeders' Cup weekend. So I guess
Okay.
we didn't really time this too well.
You guys timed it out.
You know what? There's going to be a Breeders' Cup 2022, and this is, we're so excited, and have had a tremendous amount of support from my coworkers and my bosses as well. So it's just really exciting times, guys.
All right. So we know you've got to get back to an important business dinner that you're going to have. So we're going to keep you for about 5 more minutes. I just wanted to ask you, explain to us what you do at TVG and what is TVG for those that are uninitiated.
So TVG is pretty much America's horse racing network. They've been around for 21 years. 22 years maybe. We celebrated a 20th anniversary just a few years ago. And they pretty much, at one point in time, it was TVG and HRTV, and
Right.
those were two networks that covered horse racing. But now, it's pretty much TVG is the one place that you can watch, the majority of the tracks that are going around the country. And my role, it differs from time to time. Sometimes I'm reporter, sometimes I'm racing analyst, sometimes I'm host. And I just, I work with them and do that. So yeah, I love the company, and it's interesting, guys, because we just we didn't just do it. It was a while ago, but we did merge with FanDuel. So it's also been really interesting to kind of bring the sports bettors and that vernacular into horse racing and try to create that bridge between people who are familiar with wagering on sports and horse racing, because there is a lot of crossover.
That's what I was going to ask you next before I turn you over to Gary for a couple last questions. Is there a push where TVG will end up talking about baseball and basketball and football on that network, or is it just the exact opposite? They only want to bring people that are already doing that betting into betting on horses.
TVG, I think, will remain horse racing, and will try to bring those who are more familiar with sports wagering into the horse racing side of things. But I know FanDuel, they're developing their own content and their own programming as well. Digital programming, streaming, and those types of shows. So I do think it's going to remain separate. But this day and age, things change.
A lot of crossover.
Hard to predict.
Gabby, let me give a couple, and then we'll let you go. The longtime stereotype of the horse racing fan, as I'm sure you know, is probably a middle-aged or an older-aged man with a porcupine hat, chomping on a cigar, etc. Waiting for the 8th race to start at Pimlico on a Tuesday afternoon. My question is, in your demographic and among your peers, I'm not talking about in the industry, I'm talking about in your age group, your age demographic. How is horse racing looked upon?
Well, it's a tough question to answer, Gary, because there's been a lot going in the last year and a half. I mean, since when COVID hit, you have to remember, horse racing was one of the only sports that continued on during beginning stages of COVID. I can remember everything was shutting down, basketball, baseball, you name it, and horse racing continued on. So we had the opportunity to do a lot of shows with NBC and NBC Sports because they had no content. And that really opened the door to educating, a general audience on what horse racing was. And I think I think we did a really good job of trying to change how we spoke about racing, because you know as well as I do, it can be a very complicated sport and you can go down many different avenues and rabbit holes. So I don't want to say dumbing it down, but making it a little bit more simpler, the message of what horse racing is and how to approach it. And so I think that was a really positive thing. And then as of late, there's been a lot of controversy. So I'm hoping that we can just really continue on and make the right changes in the sport and, just get it back to the way it was. And not back to the way it was, but change things for the better moving forward.
Final question from me. I mean, at the end of the day, Gabby, you're a Gabby Gaudet. That name is important here in this town, and it's important in the industry, and it carries a lot of weight and expectations. My question is, was it ever a doubt in your mind that you would continue in this industry as a professional?
No, it was never a doubt that I would not continue in this industry. It's always, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I've always wondered if I wanted to branch out into other sports and maintain horse racing moving forward. And that's something that's always going to stick with me in the back of my mind. My schedule hasn't allowed me to even think about that lately, to be honest. But I do love horse racing and I'm passionate about it. And I am hopeful that we're going to be okay and we're going to make the right changes. And I think, we're going to be able to have that central governing body, and it's going to make a lot of changes moving forward. So I love it. I always will.
I hope, Gabby, that we can have you on in the fall around, we'll have to work around
Not
your other
Breeders'
schedule.
Cup, a little
Not
earlier.
Breeders' Cup, but a little months before, to talk about some of this stuff. Real quick, before we let you go, who is going to win the Belmont Saturday? And I'm just curious, not that I would be comfortable sitting with 80,000 people in the stands, but there's going to be no attendance at the Belmont. Why is that?
Well, okay. The first question is, I'm going with known agenda, and I know this might make me sound horrible, but I have been high on this horse since he ran in the Florida Derby. I picked him in the Kentucky Derby. I didn't think the rail post position would have been an issue. It was a big issue. If you go back and watch the replay in the Kentucky Derby, he had a horrible trip. And he's kind of a horse that is one-paced, and that's kind of what you want in the Belmont, a horse that just maintains and can just run all day. So I'm going to stick with him one more time for Todd Pletcher to get the win, but obviously a lot of people will be focusing on the juvenile champion of last year, Essential Quality. So yeah, those are the two horses that I'm going to be paying attention to for the Belmont. And then remind me what your second question was.
Second question was why there's not going to be any attendance at the Belmont.
I think there is.
I just read something last night when I was researching. It said no attendance allowed. Maybe that's changed. I don't know.
It might. I mean, I know some. I feel like I have some people that I know that are attending that have tickets. I don't know if that applies to general admission. I'm not sure, Stan. I would have to follow up on that. I didn't read that article.
All right. It's great to catch up with you again. You look fantastic. Give my best to your husband and give him a mazel tov for me, and good luck with everything. All right.
I will do. Thanks, guys. And always great to be on with you.
Great to see you, Gabby. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That's Gabby Gaudet. And that was really great catching up with Gabby from down in Kentucky. Gary, I thought we'd take a little opportunity here for a few minutes to discuss what we're going to be doing on some Wednesday nights in the near future. Yep. I'm making every attempt to get somebody. I'm working with the Maroon PR people to get somebody on from the golf tournament. That's big news. It's coming to Maryland at Caves Valley in late August. And Media Day is June 28th with the BMW Classic. And this is a big time tournament with not senior golfers. It's the creme de la creme are going to be playing. So that's pretty exciting news.
Yeah, it is. And I tell you, I don't live too far from the Caves Valley golf club. And I can just tell you, and I know it's not often, but The senior tour has been there. The BMW
Yep.
is coming in the summer. When it comes, and the roads, Park Heights Avenue, Green Spring Avenue, yeah, I mean, traffic's a little worse because there's a lot of cars, obviously.
Mm.
But Stan, I got to tell you something. Big time sports doesn't come to Owings Mills all
Right.
that often.
Yep.
And when it comes, there is a little hum and a buzz, and I really enjoy it. So I'm glad and proud actually that it's coming, and I can't wait for it to get here.
All right, we'll look to do something. You're not going to be with me next Wednesday, but I'm going to try and have somebody on. But you've helped arrange a really top guest the week after that on June 16th.
Right. So June 16th is a Wednesday night, and it's really going to be a big pleasure to have, and one who I think is, and we've talked about this before, has probably made the biggest impact on local college basketball in the history of Baltimore.
Yep.
And that is Ryan Odom, who is now the former head coach at UMBC. Anybody who follows college basketball knows that, Ryan led UMBC to an unprecedented win over Virginia, 16-1 in the NCAA tournament. And he continued with that success. I mean, not quite to that level, but still, UMBC had a great 5-year run under Ryan. Ryan is now the head coach at Utah State, took a job in that conference, the Mountain West Conference. We wish him well, of course, and we'll have him on June 16th to talk about his time here at UMBC and what he sees for the future.
All right. A few other people we're going to be working on in the immediate future after that. I'm going to convene a sports business panel again with you, me, and Andy Dolich, our friend from the left coast, and Marty Conway. And that's always an interesting conversation now that sports is back, allowing people into the venues, and that's how that's changing sports. And we'll take a look at post-pandemic, how the world of sports has changed in 12 months or 15 months, since we came down with this pandemic. We're also entering this new era, Gary, with sports betting, which is going to be legal in the state of Maryland. We'll probably be able to make our first bets, maybe not online, but at the casinos, probably in September when the NFL season takes place. So we're going to talk to a few people in that industry, including the Ravens' Kevin Rocklitz, who's supervising and helping facilitate their relationship with not one casino enterprise, but a couple. We'll find out about that.
We should also mention, and maybe we'll talk to Kevin about this as a little bit of a sidebar, and I'm not sure how many football fans realize this, but this year's NFL regular season is going to be 17 games.
That is correct.
Not 16 games.
And
the
I
Ravens
want to
are gonna
point
have
out,
nine
the
home
Ravens have 9 home games. Yep.
That is correct. So we should talk to Kevin about that, what the ramifications are of that from a player standpoint, a management standpoint, et cetera, a revenue standpoint. And so, yeah, a lot of interesting things, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, 17 games, a lot of interesting stuff going on.
It's interesting. I'm assuming, Gary, that this year I noticed the Ravens play only one preseason game at home. So I'm assuming next year they will probably play 8 home games and 2 preseason games. I just read something the other day. I read the headline, but didn't click on the article, that the NFL is already strategizing how to go to an 18th game. Have you heard that?
I've heard that, and
Yeah.
Obviously, logically speaking, they would reduce the preseason to 2 games at that point,
Right.
one home, one away. They would
Right.
probably have maybe some inner, like, I'm not sure what to call them, like the scrimmages,
Yeah.
between the teams, maybe a little bit more of that. But yeah, 18 games. Look, it's all about revenue, Stan.
Yep.
The NFL is the highest grossing revenue of any major sport in this country. They're going to continue to be that. And they're just trying to find new ways, better ways, more ways to make money. And this is part of it.
Yeah. So we'll be looking to do that. Some exciting stuff going on at the University of Maryland football with quarterback Talia Tagliavoa. Is that his name? Tagliavoa? Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, basically.
He's the brother of the Miami Dolphins quarterback who played at
Tua,
Alabama, and Talia played at Alabama or was on the Alabama team. That's where he met Mike Locksley. And he's coaching the University of Maryland. Our cover story, which comes out June the 16th, is going to be about whether he's the big man on campus or not. We'll look to try and get Mike Locksley on. We'll look to have Also, our good friend Matt Zenitz from down in Alabama, who covers them, the University of Alabama football program, and we'll try and get him on as well. So a lot of interesting stuff we're going to be doing over the next couple months.
Absolutely. Hey, just one quick note about Matt Zenitz.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a local boy, local product, made good. Went out to Alabama as the beat writer, covers them down there. You had mentioned in a conversation that we had earlier today that Alabama had 6 first-round draft choices in this past year's draft, which is accurate. What I want to do, and I'll do this, I'll go back before we have Matt Zenitz on. Since Nick Saban came down to Alabama,
Right.
I mean, what's it been now? 12, 15 years?
What's he had 50 players in the first
I
two
don't know
rounds?
the number, but that's the point. I want to go back, and I will. I'll go back and I will
Okay.
count all the first-round draft choices from all the drafts that Nick Saban was responsible for at Alabama, and come up with that number. And that is that. I'm sure it's just a
It's a
it's
mind-blowing
just a crazy
number.
number. Yeah.
That'll be exciting. There's no question about that. And by the way, speaking of Gabby and Norman's blessing that they're going to have a child, Matt Zenitz and his wife down in Alabama are expecting their second child.
Oh.
And they showed they put a picture out on social media with young Miles Zenitz wearing a T-shirt that said, "I'm going to be a big brother." All right. So anyway,
That's awesome.
we're excited about that, and we'll reach out to Matt and set up a time. I love doing these with you, Gary, and I hope we can continue doing them. All right.
Absolutely, Stanley. I'll look forward to it every week.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. And again, we want to thank Gabby Gaudet of TVG for joining us. I can't say she's an old friend because she's still young as can be, but boy, is she a classy lady. She really is. And we thank her
Absolutely.
for coming on. Press Box Live is brought to you every Monday and Wednesday by our friends at C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to let a brand new roof, to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. That's c3america.com. Go to their website, c3america.com now to get a free roof inspection. And as I always say, Gary, there's not another expenditure you might have on your home as expensive and far-reaching as protecting your roof or actually going ahead and fixing it. And you want the best. C3 American Exteriors is the company. C3 American Exteriors. For Gary Stein and Gabby Gaudet, I'm Stan the Fan, and we'll see you down the road pretty soon.